Imagine a globalized world. Magnificent palaces, an international trade network moving tons of copper, tin, and gold across the sea, and kings of different empires treating each other as equals, calling one another brother in their letters. No, this isn't the 21st century. It's the year 1250 BC, the height of the Bronze Age. The Egyptians, the Hittites, the Mycenaeans, the Minoans. For centuries, these superpowers had created an interconnected, prosperous, and surprisingly stable world. Large ox-hide-shaped copper ingots traveled from Cyprus to the Aegean. Tin, vital for forging bronze, journeyed thousands of kilometers from the distant lands of Afghanistan. Hittite war chariots, a marvel of engineering, were a prized diplomatic gift. The world was connected by a thread of bronze. They seemed eternal. And then, in less than 50 years, almost all of them vanished from the map. And no one to this day knows for certain why. This is not a history class. It is an investigation. Welcome to the largest crime scene of antiquity. The victims, entire civilizations. The murder weapon, unknown. The motive, a mystery. Here is the evidence, the bodies. The great port city of Ugarit on the coast of Syria, a cosmopolitan hub of commerce, was burned so violently that its mud bricks were fired like pottery, and it was never inhabited again. Hattusa, the impregnable capital of the Hittite Empire in Anatolia, was razed and abandoned forever. Mycenae, the legendary city of Agamemnon in Greece, with its cyclopean walls, was reduced to ashes. The trail of destruction extends throughout the eastern Mediterranean. In the ruins of these cities, archaeologists find the same layer of ash and destruction, and often arrowheads of a type never seen before, evidence of an unknown invader. But the most devastating consequence was not the fire, it was the silence. Knowledge itself was annihilated. In Greece, the complex writing system known as linear B completely disappeared. The ability to read and write was erased from collective memory because it was not an alphabet of the people. It was a complex tool used only by a handful of palace scribes. When the palaces burned, knowledge burned with them, plunging the region into a deep, dark age of 400 years. The only voices left to us from the catastrophe are the last desperate messages, inscribed on clay tablets that were baked in the fires that destroyed their cities. From Ugarit, the last king writes frantically to his ally in Cyprus, "My father, behold, the enemy's ships came here, my cities were burned, and they did evil things in my country. Does not my father know that all my troops and chariots are in the land of Hutti, and all my ships are in the land of Lukka? Thus, the country is abandoned to itself." He never received a reply. To feel the real panic, we must listen to the anonymous witnesses. Imagine being a watchman on the coast of Cyprus. For generations, you have seen merchant ships on the horizon. But today, the ships are different. They are a war fleet, unknown, with strange sails. They are not coming to trade. They are coming to plunder. Or imagine being a woman in a wealthy Canaanite city. You hear that refugees from the coastal cities are arriving with stories of a relentless enemy. You don't have time to pack your goods. You simply take your most precious jewelry, put it in a clay jar, and bury it under the floor of your house, hoping to one day return for it. You never will. Modern archaeologists will find your little treasure, a silent echo of your desperate flight. And the panic was not only felt in the streets, but also in the throne rooms. For centuries, the great kings of Egypt, Babylon, and Hutti had formed a club of powers that maintained a balance through letters and gifts. Now that system was collapsing. Imagine being the last Hittite king. You write desperately to the pharaoh of Egypt, whom you call brother, pleading for an urgent shipment of grain to save your people from starvation, reminding him of the treaties your fathers signed. You wait for a reply, a relief caravan, but all that comes is silence. Your brother, across the sea, is too busy dealing with his own catastrophes to save you. You are alone. With the crime scene established and the testimonies heard, it's time to analyze the suspects. Who or what killed the Bronze Age? Suspect number 1, the ghost invaders. Egyptian records call them the Sea Peoples. On the reliefs of the Medinet Habu temple, Pharaoh Ramesses III described them not as an army, but as a frenzied migration. Warriors with horned and feathered helmets, accompanied by their families in ox carts, an entire nation adrift, consuming everything in their path. They were a massive destabilizing force, but could a horde of raiders bring down entire empires on its own? Many historians believe they were more a symptom of the collapse than its primary cause. Suspect number 2, the fury of nature. Analysis of ancient pollen and tree rings has revealed irrefutable proof. At the end of the 13th century BC, the Mediterranean suffered a megadrought that lasted for decades. In Cyprus, pollen shows a dramatic climate shift, with olive trees and wheat disappearing, replaced by dryland grasses. The world was drying up. This would have caused massive famines, weakening the empires from within and sparking uprisings from a hungry and desperate population. Suspect number 3, the domino effect. The greatest strength of the Bronze Age was also its greatest weakness, its interconnectedness. It was a globalized civilization that depended on international trade. It was like a modern power grid. The failure of a single station can cause a cascading blackout that paralyzes a continent. The loss of tin from Anatolia meant Mycenaean armies could no longer make their bronze weapons. Without the fleets of Ugarit, grain from Egypt could not reach the Hittites. Each failure isolated and weakened the next empire, setting it up for the final blow. And there is a suspect number 4, perhaps the most unsettling, the enemy within. What if the final blow came not from outside but from within? The archaeological evidence is curious. In many places, the great palaces and citadels of the elite were burned to the ground, but the villages of peasants and the quarters of artisans were left untouched. This does not look like the work of a foreign invader who razes everything, but rather a local population, hungry and desperate, finally rising up against their kings, whom they saw as impotent gods who could no longer guarantee either bread or security. These civil wars would have left the kingdoms fractured and defenseless, making them easy prey for any passing marauder. So, what is the final verdict in the case of the murder of the Bronze Age? The culprit was not a single suspect. It was a perfect storm, a multiple, cascading catastrophe. The drought weakened the empires, the famine sparked internal rebellions and mass migrations like the Sea Peoples, and their attacks were simply the final blow to a system that was already crumbling under its own complexity. The true lesson of the Bronze Age collapse is a chilling warning for our own world. It teaches us how terrifyingly fragile, complex, interconnected civilizations can be. We believe we are invincible just as they did. But they show us that when a climate crisis collides with political instability and the breakdown of supply chains, even the most powerful empires can turn to dust and legend in a single generation. If this great mystery of history has fascinated you, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our future investigations. And now I ask you, which of the suspects do you think was the main culprit for the collapse? The invaders, the drought, the rebellion, or the system itself? Tell me in the comments.
The harvest has failed again. Prepare to land!
Our kingdom falls. We have nothing left.